So as we grow older, there are probably several things on our bucket list. For example, like having a good job, good stable income, having a good family, good health, and of course, a place to live. I remember when my grandpa chose the place that we now live in Los Angeles. When I was 14 at the time, there are several things he considered. For example, like a Chinese-speaking neighborhood, as well as he can walk to the places in the community. As you can see, this is where I live in Monterey Park, right there. Of course, I didn't know better because I didn't really have a say in the decision. But when I started occupational therapy school in 2009, it started to all make sense. And I realized my grandpa actually exercised forward thinking called aging in place because he wanted to participate in the community as well as being able to participate in doing things he likes, like buying newspaper or going to the library or going to the post office. So here's the Center for Disease Control's definition of aging in place. It is the ability to live in one's own home and community, regardless of safely and independently, regardless of age, income level, as well as ability level as well. So now I'm going to talk about some facts. And this is pertaining to the elderly population. By 2050, 83.7 million people will be over 65 in the US. And out of those people, 13.8 million people will have some form of Alzheimer's. And this is a very, very big problem, as I learned from my gerontology class in occupational therapy school. Now, let's switch gears to the present. Right now, there have been about 800,000 Americans who have been hospitalized for a fall. This is a serious problem because for people who are over 65, 1 in 4 will likely to have a fall. And then those who already have a fall, they will more likely to fall because they have a fear of falling. Now switch gears on the Alzheimer's front. Actually, people with Alzheimer's, they are 3 times more likely to fall than those who don't. And this is definitely is a global problem, but I'm going to talk about the US figures a little bit. In the US, right now, the most current estimate, the cost of falls is $34 billion per year in medical bills. And then the cost of Alzheimer's is $100 billion per year. Now, this is a diagram. I know it's very small, but it highlights where I work right now. So imagine one of your loved ones is rushed to the hospital. It could be from a fall at the home or someplace in the community. It could be because after a stroke and then they lost function of the body of one side of the body, or it could be after a urinary tract infection. So it could be, and of course, there could be many other reasons more. Ideally, they could go home after they go to the hospital, but let's say they cannot go home. Where would they go? One of the places we can go is called assisted living facility, where people, they will receive minimal assistance in terms of doing their daily living tasks. Where I work is the next level down. It's called skilled nursing facilities, what the general public would call nursing homes. So in this setting, your loved ones, whether it's your grandparents or your parents, they will receive 24-hour care from the nursing staff. And they might or might not receive rehabilitation services. And what I primarily do as an occupational therapist is that I might evaluate how the patient is doing when they first come into the nursing home. It could also be working on the strength and the balance. It could also be like working on their daily living tasks. For example, like simple tasks like going to the bathroom or getting dressed or even feed themselves. Or for some people who are like bedridden, it could be just increasing their ability to interact with the environment. So a lot of people that associate nursing homes is a bunch of people who are elderly living in their place. But in reality, it's not really true. Right now in the United States, there are 1.4 million Americans living in the nursing homes. Actually, 15% of which are under 65. So it is conceivable for me to see the 20-year-old and the 30-year-olds who are living in these nursing homes as well. So now I'm going to switch gears to some of the patient stories that I have. First up, we have Christine. So I was asked to do Christine's evaluation that day to see how she is. When I went to her room, she was a bedridden lady, and she has a tracheostomy tube, an oxygen tube, as well as a feeding tube attached to her. She was totally dependent on her caregivers to do her daily living tasks. And the way she communicates, where some people are bedridden, they might not be able to communicate, but she can communicate. So she communicates via pointing letters on a piece of paper to form words. When I went to the rehab office to do my evaluation report, this was then I talked to the physical therapist who also did her own evaluation. It was then I found out that Christine, she was going for a PhD degree. Unfortunately, she has ALS and as well as other respiratory issues and other physical issues that left her in that state. When I went home that day, I was like, wow, I couldn't believe it. It's like, this lady, she has all the things going for her, going very well in her life, and then something like that just happened. And then she's like completely in bed for the rest of her life, pretty much. Next story I have is Chris. So Chris used to be an actor in Hollywood scene, actually. So he has like chronic shoulder issues as well as like, so his right foot was twisted out, pointed outward. And he has been staying in that nursing home for 10 years because it was very difficult for the rehab team to fit a brace to fit his right foot correctly. And then because he was a very big, strong person, so he actually had a lot of trouble balancing himself when he walks. So that's why you see the picture here is like he actually had to walk on the parallel bars to sort of get confident in walking. And then because it's also big and strong, so he needs like 2 or 3 people to help him to walk to the bathroom. At first, I did not get along with Chris very well. But then, a year later, I actually walked past his room. I saw golf clubs in his room. I found out that he likes golf. And at that time, I just barely started golf. So I went into his room. I talked about my miserable golf performances on the golf course. So he told me was, Bill, let's make a bet. It's like, I've been staying in this damn nursing home for 10 years. It's like, let's make a bet, okay? So me getting out of this damn facility or you trying to break 100 on a championship golf course. Little did I know, a year later, he was discharged from an assisted living facility. Me, on the other hand, I still tried to break 100, as I still couldn't. Next on the list was Susan. Susan came to us 2 months before Christmas one year. And her family was very involved in her care. And the ultimate goal for Susan from her family was they want her to come home before Christmas. I mean, imagine your loved ones and they have a situation like this. Wouldn't that be one of your wishes? So, because her family was very involved and our rehab team was very enthusiastic, Susan was able to meet her goal. And the fact that seeing these successful discharges, even though it is very tough for me, I know that is what keeps the passion and momentum going. At the end of the day, though, I'm really not a miracle worker because sometimes the grim reality is that these people living in these nursing homes, they may not be able to go home or they may not be able to go to a lower level of care. The reason it could be because they just couldn't take care of themselves. Or it could be because they pose themselves, they danger to themselves or others. So you may think it's like, oh, it's a very bright, very happy job to see all these discharges. But sometimes in places like this, it's like, it could get really grim, very depressing. So now I'm going to switch to some of my take-home points. First, go for the opportunities when they present themselves. I remember when I first started my job in the nursing home, I actually longed to have a desire to play golf. But my parents come and tell me, it's like, golf is so expensive. Why do you want to play it? But then after I hear some of the stories from my patients, I realized that I got to take advantage of my youth, and I got to do things that I want to do while I still can. So therefore, I took up golf after I went to the summer in the UK, and I tried it. I really like it. So I decided to go to the rummage sales or the Goodwill stores to buy my own set so I can get started to play. Next on the list is remain physically active. So according to research, actually, if you are physically active, you could decrease your risk of falls. Next on the list is learn something new and unfamiliar every day. And then this is also according to some research as well. Right now, I heard is like, if you keep on engaging in different and new things in life, you decrease your risk of having Alzheimer's or dementia. Right now, I will say from a cognitive standpoint, I've been very active. So aside from the fact that I work 40 plus hours a week, I'm involved in 3 different communities in the occupational therapy profession. Also, I want to start teaching in adjunct faculty role in a local occupational therapy institution. So for me, it's like definitely I want to keep my mind sharp by focusing on different things in my life. Next on the list is treasure the older folks around you. And whether they have physical problems or cognitive problems, they are very good resources to have because sometimes you can learn some very good life lessons from them. And I know in our speaker gathering event, I definitely have some conversations with our older speakers to pick on some wisdom from them about how to live gracefully. And yeah, or on the flip side, you might see someone who are like maybe past history, like a drug addict or something. It's like you learn something else too because you don't want to repeat their mistakes in life. So in closing, actually I want to shout out to my great profession because it is actually our 100th anniversary this year. So I'm grateful for the opportunity for this TEDx experience. Thank you.